Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to the Gundam Explained show. I'm Adam Blue. Joining me as always is Steven Midnight Hatter. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good. And you know what? I'm kind of happy because part of this like subplot we've had through this show, now 90-some episodes, is the technical difficulties. And I
Part
reached
of the
out,
fun.
to the people that make the software, and they said that they found the issue and they fixed it, and it'll come out in the next patch. So I'm like, great. So in the meantime, I'm actually not streaming to Twitch or Facebook like I used to, but that's okay because,
That
I
sounds like
mean,
that line from Office Space where it's like, "Oh no, we fixed the glitch."
yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's so. Anyway, I don't want to have to worry about technical difficulties, so I just not
Yeah.
trying to stream everywhere at once for now. Just keep
Well,
it
and I see
tasty.
that they made you so mad that you joined our side, because I see you're wearing a freaking awesome looking Xeon
Oh,
T-shirt.
yeah, that's right. I'm glad you brought that up. So
Yeah,
Yenshin Studio, and it says True Gumpla on it. It's
very awesome.
as a fan of like black metal music, I got so used to seeing the album art of black metal,
Yeah,
and so it's cool that it's kind of like that. And I have another one. I think it's upstairs, but it's an RX-78 Actually, I think it was in one of my videos this week.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah. Um, So yeah, no, and I think that my only critique of that shirt is that it's not black metal enough because you can still read True
yeah,
Gunpla. I think
that's
it needs more branches, more
I
antlers,
know
and
that is a good one. Yeah, because usually that's how it works. Where the purpose is where you can't read what the band name
yeah,
is. Um, but no, that really I have this 3 shirts I have total from that. True Gunpla, or you can search Yenshin. I think one of my recent videos I have description or in the link. Links in the description.
it's
Um,
very sweet.
Speaking of links and descriptions, your stuff. So Steven, for all you guys out there that don't know Steven's stuff is in the description. Yesterday was pretty cool, which it's pretty amazing. We were looking at the kind of this prototype concept we've been coming up with for what we would want out of a Gundam game. And
Yeah,
it's, I'm not the dev guy, so it's pretty amazing watching Steven go through Blender, Unity, rigging up these models. Even we got to see the GM running around with a Zaku shoulder shield, because
yeah,
that's kind of the elements of stuff we want in the game. So it's really cool to see that you were able to prototype that. Anything else you
yeah.
want to
It's
add?
amazing what we can do. Like in an hour a week, we can.
Yeah,
It's like you feed me an idea of like, oh well, it'd be kind of cool if you could equip different parts from other mobile suits onto like a frame. And it's like, well, let's do it. So yeah, it's a fun little hobby project that we were embarking on because it's like, you know, I like to joke that it's like half tutorial, half just messing around, but 100% Gunpla or
yeah,
Gundam.
yeah.
It's-
No, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Amazing stuff. So yeah, check the link in the description because again, it's part of the Gundam Week Hatter and I have going on, so you get
yeah,
your fill of stuff. But yeah, going to the chat real quick. We got Robert, who has been away for a while, so good to see Robert back.
yeah, good to
And
see you, bud.
not only is he back, but he's the first.
Yeah,
With the comment. Ian
sniper.
Armad, good to see you. Ultronomus, Shirt Lad, Jamkel X, Travis Wadlow, good to see you guys. Hope everyone is doing good. So, yeah, this week when it comes to Gundam stuff, it's like the first time in a while, which I don't know if it's sad or not, that I haven't bought anything new Gundam. I mean, I guess other than the shirts that came in the mail, but like no Gunpla, no action figures. It's like sometimes I'm like, man, I'm just buying, or it turns into a habit where then I feel like I just need to go and buy something. And it's like, no,
Right.
I don't need to. So I have all these kits that I need to build, and I even have videos I've already been working on to finish up. So I have tons of content already coming. A little hint for next week, instead of a collectible or Gunpla review, that instead is going to be a lore video about a mobile suit. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty hyped to see that.
Yeah, and it's cool too because the other content I like to make is reviewing whatever show is out. I think it's pretty nice. It's Witch from Mercury is like the first time that like every week I have some content there for me to not only talk
Yeah,
about, but it's part of the Gundam zeitgeist, I guess, at the moment. Like
exactly.
everyone's talking about Witch for Mercury, so I'm glad I can contribute in some way. But how have you been enjoying the new few episodes so far?
I honestly have not been keeping up with the well, I guess the new half of the first season because I kind of fell off at the end
Ah, okay.
of the previous season. So I need to catch up and get up to speed before I start watching some of these new episodes. But I hear through the grapevine that my guy Ghoul has gotten a little bit more of a character arc. So
Yeah.
for me, it's worth it to kind of plug back in and
It's
uh,
yeah, especially now because I think all of the English of that first part is out yet or about to be. So that's probably a good way to catch up by just finishing the English, and then it is cool because with Witch for Mercury, it's like it got into what always happens in these Gundam shows, where like midway through a season, it just changes like tone and
oh yeah.
location. Now there's a focus on different characters all of a sudden, and they're doing that here now, and so it seems it's giving me Double O vibes. I think that's the best way to put it. Double O was this good, in my opinion, like almost like middle ground of classic Gundam, but doing new stuff, but still
Yeah.
being cool. So
Well, and that's
yeah,
it's in the classic vein of Gundam shows, right? Because like Double Zeta, you had this massive tonal shift for that first
yeah,
half of
that's
the
right.
season, and then you get whiplash when they kind of bring you back into it. So, like, in that regard, it's like even though the main setup for G Witch was something that like didn't really appeal to me, it's like maybe that's the same way people felt about Double Zeta, where it's like, well, I don't know how I feel about this ragtag bunch of kids that are kind of dumping on Bright all the time. But then it's like the payoff, I think, makes up for it a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? You speaking on it in this way gives more clarity to what I'm seeing with Double Zeta because it almost was like they didn't know what they were doing. But actually, now that not only that and some other anime, even Seed does the thing where it has a shift. I
Yeah.
think it's what the shift is, and I want to know if this is correct or not, or it depends. It's more of the story is focused on the characters until it decides to focus on the world. And I think that's probably what we see a lot. And maybe that will help me when I'm watching a show, an anime that's long, and I'm like, this beginning is dragging, but it's like, wait a minute. They're building the characters. Let me give the
Yeah.
creators the due and sit through, you know,
Because
all
I've
this.
heard the same criticism of Zeta, that like, I don't necessarily agree with it, but
Yeah.
I've heard people say, well, you got to get through that first 15 episodes or so. Like, I know Camille's annoying, but like, and to me, I was like, what do you think? You're out of your mind. Like, that's
Well, yeah,
the
you know
first
what?
15 episodes are great.
No, that's funny that you bring up Zeta because Zeta is one that I don't feel that way at all. Like you were saying, how it from the start, it's giving you the world and the characters. But you have your Zeta episode 2 video. No, I know it went up for supporters, but is it up for everyone else or is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning, that'll be
Cool.
dropping. So, yeah, for
Okay.
those of you who work the 9 to 5 grind, you'll have something to put on in the background and zone out to me talking about Zeta Gundam. So
Yeah, because it was excellent. Really, the things you brought up for that second were things like, wow, I didn't, and I don't want to spoil too much because actually maybe that could be a conversation later to kind of
yeah,
talk about some of the themes you brought up because there were some interesting things that you brought up about episode 2 that I didn't even think about. It even made it seem like a lot of times it seems too much of a coincidence that these writers had to have known they were trying to connect dots or trying to say something. Um,
yeah, yeah.
it,
That's how I feel about it. And
yeah,
I now that we're kind of getting into more of the meat of 0079 and Zeta Gundam, it's like the first episode. There's never a whole lot to talk about because you're really just being introduced to a cast of characters. Um,
right.
but once you start getting underway and you start seeing the what will be the good, it's almost like a trickle of character arc building that starts coming out, and you're
Yeah.
like, and especially given the benefit of hindsight, I think that, again, going back to a lot of the criticism around G Witch, is it's like, given the benefit of hindsight, if we were to look at kind of where Ghoul is at as a character now compared to
Oh,
where he was in the first couple of episodes, it might give a little bit more context to like, what is going on? Like, there were so many of those kind of like, what's going on with this show? They're introducing these characters and then they pull them out and then, they disappear for 2 or 3 episodes. And I think that, you know, they, not to sound too much like a sports fan, but like, trust the process, right? Like trust
yeah.
the,
Yeah, exactly. I think you bring up a really good point. It's sometimes after an episode, I'm like, well, what are they doing? And some
right.
to their credit, and I bring this up a lot with Witch from Mercury, is they do eventually get back to a thread that made no sense to me and resolve it. A specific case would be when the Gundam Ariel was fighting Ghoul. It's like, well, that's not fair. But they
Yeah.
did bring that up later, and I was like, okay, good. I'm glad they touched on that. And yeah, that's something I need to keep in mind because it's very easy for me to watch an anime and be like, okay, what? This is ridiculous. But
Yeah.
sometimes they are building the characters. They're making payoffs for later. And I think it's, I don't know. It's not as apparent in Western TV when I watch,
Yeah.
the TV shows. Not that it's any worse, but it's like a different structure. But doesn't necessarily have the biggest payoff, but it has more consistent moments, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that one of the things that yeah, like you said, with anime, they do a good job of planting those seeds early and then having the payoff. I think that the most notorious failure on the part of Western storytellers would be like someone like Ryan Murphy, who, if you've ever watched like American Horror Story,
He does the 911, and that's what I was thinking of when I was making the comparison.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you get some crazy character whiplash where it's like, for the first half of the season you're under the impression that there's this one character that's the murderer, and then it turns out that the person that's been running away was the murderer the whole time, and you're like, well, there was never any kind of implication, and why would they be running from the murderer if they were secretly the murderer the whole time? Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's almost like when the mystery trope is used, sometimes it's used purposely to misdirect the audience.
Yeah, red
It,
herrings are great, but like, you have to have a
yeah,
convincing red herring.
so have you heard of that show Rabbit Hole with
No, I haven't.
Kiefer Sutherland? It's amazing. It's on Paramount, and it's amazing.
Huh.
It's like modern day conspiracy theories, but like showing that they're happening. And like,
That sounds
but
cool.
what's interesting about it though is, and this is where it's interesting about when shows have how they're written. They're giving you mysteries and then misdirecting you on purpose, and then revealing something that, oh, but this actually happened and it's a flashback. It's like, oh, well, then that makes sense. So it's almost like
Yeah.
it's structured to be along for the ride for misguidedness, and not that it's actually a well-told story from front
Right.
to back. I think it's that kind of thing. It's almost like you have, for a lot of Western TV, it's like you have a lot of crazy things happen on an episode that might not make sense, but it's enjoyable,
Right.
and then you move on. So,
Well, and that's
um,
oh man, one of my favorite examples of a rug pull was, I was watching, there was this documentary on the History Channel about, they found these remains of dragons in like the British Isles.
hmm.
And so they went underground and they started digging in these caves and they found like skeletal remains of dragons, and they started talking about the differences between like the dragon skeletons and what you would find like in America with dinosaurs and stuff. And then at the end of it, they're like, we made all of this up. And if you stay tuned, we have a documentary on how we made this fake documentary about dragons. And I was just sitting there
Oh,
like,
that's pretty
you
cool.
had me. You had me thinking
Yeah,
that
that's
there was dragons.
no, that's actually pretty neat, huh? Well, Anyway, it's cool. I'm surprised, or is it surprised? I'm pleasantly amused with how Witch
There
from
you go.
Mercury is actually like.
Yeah.
It was different at first for me, but I enjoyed it. But now it's like getting into the core of what I like about Gundam. So, um,
I think a lot of people would agree with that for sure.
yeah. Looking at the chat real quick, I see that it looks like Dan showed up. Good to see you, Talos, brother in arms in GBO2. Good to see you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of GBO2, let's let's move to that real quick.
Oh, we do have some GBO2 news, huh?
Yeah, so there's this mobile suit called the Sisquid.
Siskiday.
Yeah,
Let's just call him Cisco.
Cisco. Yep, there you
Yeah.
go. What's interesting about this is apparently this mobile suit was from an SD generation game. That's how
Yeah.
it started. And I find that interesting because we've already joked like how this team really pulls from obscure stuff, but this I think takes the cake. If they're getting,
For sure.
I mean, it's still Universal Century of an SD Gundam, a Mono Eye Gundam.
It's pretty cool looking Mono Eye Gundam if we're being honest.
So yeah, I have the page up here for it. So what's cool is this is one that has the Titans colors and AU colors. I always love that sort of thing. Which it's funny because AU colors to me is just Federation colors, and then Titans is just bad guy colors.
Generic bad guy.
Yeah,
little purple, little blue.
Yeah. So yeah, a little bit about this. It's the LRX 077 Cisco is a prototype mobile suit from SD Gundam G Generation. And I guess and a manga called Mono Eye Gundams. That's pretty neat.
A little on the nose, but yeah.
Yeah. It says it's from an alternate, non-canonical version of the Universal Century timeline, which I think. I feel like I'm going to go off on a tangent, but when I see the non-canonical and then that of Universal Century, it's like, oh well, technically, like the manga of Thunderbolt that people say in Origin.
Technically.
And although the animation, though, is all supposed to be, considered the same thing, even if it's a Thunderbolt manga that is not part of the story, the animation is part of the larger story. But what was I watching? A really cool thing, an interview, David Jaffe interviewed a dude that's making a documentary about the George Romero Resident Evil movie.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you a link because he's coming out with a documentary for it. And when he was doing his research on it, and he talked to a lot of Japanese people, developers, or people he said in Japan, canon is just not a thing. Like when they make something related, little threads don't have to relate. So it's a super cultural thing that I get triggered when I see something that says non-canonical, but I think it's just because for some reason in the West, we like our stories to connect a whole lot. In Japan,
we like things that fit.
And that's interesting because in Japan, it's like no one cares, and that's kind of more open and free. Like I don't like having to be bogged down just because in my mind I'm like, well, that's not canon, and I bring that up again because I'll be on Reddit just Gundam Reddit is not bad, even though there's places on Reddit that are bad. Gundam Reddit's not bad. But
I'm going to take your word for
it. But there was someone posted, and that's what's cool. People will be like, where should I start with Gundam? And normally the people are really nice when they say, oh, start with this. Usually it's just start with the original. Yeah. But in there, the guy said, oh, I just finished Thunderbolt and Origin. What else? And then one of the replies was like, well, Thunderbolt and Origin's not canon. And it's like, well, you don't need to bring that up. Like, who cares? And don't let that take away from someone that wants the world building of Thunderbolt to be part of their world of 0079. I think things can. Anyway.
Well, and I think that next week, this is a little spoiler. Okay. Next week, the discussion that we're going to have on Midnight Hatter Live is going to be in reference to something specifically Origin and Thunderbolt and canon. So
good,
So feed us your nastiest comments about canon when it comes to Origin and Thunderbolt. We've already got a hot discussion going on in Discord about it. So
okay. Oh, on your Discord. Oh, I'll have to jump in and look at that. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad to know we're going to be talking about that so I can move on. But that is an interesting thing that it's like a personal struggle. But, okay, so back to this non-canonical version. In my mind, it's canon.
Yeah.
Originally
it is now that it's in GBO.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what I think too. Could all these work together? But with the story, it was developed part of the old Principality of Xeon's Mono Eye Gundam plan, MGP. I don't know. I just made that up, but interesting. It was never realized due to Xeon's defeat, and it makes sense that the Titans then obtained the data. Like,
Right.
I like that idea. To me, that even though they say it's non-canon, you could take that, insert it into the animation universe, and it doesn't discredit anything.
So what would be like the UC version of Operation Paperclip, where the
Oh,
Federation got all of the Xeon scientists to come build mobile suits for them? Like,
that's whatever. I wonder if there was a name for that when the Principality was dissolved to become the Republic, and then the Xeonic scientists went to Anaheim or the Federation. Was there a name for that?
not that I know of, but I mean that's
Ah,
where the Hyzak came from.
yeah.
Basically all of the Titans mobile suits came from that program of stealing Xeon designs and
Because if
federating them. I don't know.
Yeah, federating them. No, that would be a cool story if that hasn't been written yet, where there was some sort of, it was a plan,
Yeah,
like it was, well, in order for us to be able to be superior, while remnants may be out there, even though that maybe that's what also led to the Titans. It's like we need an operation. It could be
I guess
Operation
technically it would
Rabbit.
be
Because
maybe it's technically Stardust Memory, like Operation Stardust, because that was like the whole, spoiler alert, but Bask Ohm and his like whole power grab regarding the Titans was using Delaz and Gato as like a, hey, look, there are Xeon remnants out there. You better just, give me free, the power to execute whoever I feel like. And
okay, I
uh
think that works then. Yeah, to use Operation Stardust as that was part of that plan. Because it's
yeah,
true. It's interesting how, and so I guess that makes sense for then a mobile suit that's a mono eye Gundam to come out of something like that.
it's very cool.
Yeah. But you know what? Other than that, this was really the first time I had ever heard of it, and it looks like there's potentially model kits or some sort of figure of them.
Yeah.
It it looks cool. At first, it looks messy, but then when you are busy, but when you look at it closely, you can kind of see, it has kind of that SD Gundam look, and not in terms of proportions, but sometimes the design elements where they do have a lot of sharp edges sticking out everywhere, like
Yeah.
that Tornado Gundam or whatever the other ones are. Um,
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to bring up is like the Tornado and the Phoenix Gundam, which are,
Phoenix, that's right.
SDG generation exclusives. Is it possible that we're going to see those in GBO2 or not necessarily because they're not,
Yeah, they're not like the
even with the
UC
Siskoday
story. Yeah,
not being canon UC, it is still technically UC, whereas the Tornado is not. I don't
which
know.
no, that's a good point, and it reminds me of I've been playing this past weekend Generation Genesis more because I want to beat it. I started at 0079 and I got through Missing Link, and then I went back and now I'm at 0083. But the one thing I notice is all of my main units are these non-UC Gundam that I'm just like destroying everything with, and it's like I'd
Yeah,
rather, but it's like quicker because the
I
game
know.
does take time. So
Yeah, you end up breezing through, like if you unlock unlock the Unicorn Gundam and you're just like full armor unicorn in the middle of the 1 year war. Just
I haven't got that yet. The one I'm using, it's pretty cool. It looks like a Zeta that has two new Gundam fin wings.
oh, the hot scramble.
Oh, is that what it's called? Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a Build Fighters Gundam. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's what I'm using in that SD game, and it's just destroying everything. It has like range. It's like, okay. Actually, I got the DLC that had all the
like
AOZ,
the
Advance of Zeta,
Thunderbolt. Yeah.
and I've just been murdering with those.
Oh yeah.
As well. But anyway, interesting. I didn't even bother rolling for this. In GBO2, I did the other one. It was just where you get the half off. I'm cheap like that. Um, anyway, moving on from that. Oh, I see Brian and Goose in the chat. Good to see you guys. Um, So I personally, I know there's some others like Ian and Tom, totally into the robot spirits. Pretty cool that they're doing this arbitrary 15th anniversary. Like, why does it matter that there's a 15th anniversary of these figures? But I like that it's getting that much publicity, I guess, because I
Yeah.
love these figures. So what they're doing for the 15th anniversary is, I guess they're choosing some main ones that they're gonna come out with re-releases of, but they have like a little animation cell and a stand. And it's unfortunate because I just got that aerial and I want to get that newer one, but now they have another version, so I'll probably skip
Yeah, I
that.
think it was a little early to re-release the aerial, but yeah, you
Yeah,
know. But
but
no, I mean, the number of accessories that these ones come with is
yeah.
amazing. So
So, for instance, I just got through Seed recently. I have more familiarity and some appreciation for like the Strike, and this Robot Spirits re-release looks awesome. I mean, it because I think the idea is it comes with all the accessories that might have been sold separately, but also a cool stand.
yeah,
Loved the effect parts for the thrusters. That's like my favorite.
they're awesome.
And then they're coming out with the RX-78 too, but what's interesting about this is a version, it's the most accurate version of it that you can get, but it wasn't as widely available as the standard. And what I mean is, so the joints on the elbows are white and the
Yeah,
hands are more of a green or olive. Now, the standard release, it was just black hands and there was the gray underneath in the elbow, but they actually decided to do a wider release that's highly accurate. It comes with a special stand.
yeah. So a little closer to the anime, which
Yeah.
that was if you ever got any of like the mobile suit in action line,
Oh.
I think that the RX-78 had like the green hands and
Oh, okay. So
um
I always see that line every time I'm searching for a figure or something. I'm always seeing that mobile suit in action. Was that around when you were like buying figures when you were younger or something?
my little brother collected the figures while I
Ah,
collected the model kits. Just,
okay.
him being younger didn't feel like assembling anything, he just
I
wanted to
see.
take it out of the box and play with it. So
Was it aimed that way, like as a toy, kind of like the Gundam Universe figures?
it kind of felt like it was for sure. I
Mhm.
definitely remember seeing them at like Toys R Us and stuff like that.
Ah, that's cool.
And they always had the coolest accessories. Like you had like a Medea, they
Yeah, I
never came
see
out with
that.
a model kit of like the Medea or the Elmeth.
Yeah,
It's like,
Elmeth. That was the biggest one. Like I've looked online, like I'll see an Elmeth. It's kind of expensive, but it's like I need one for my collection.
yeah,
So um,
how am I supposed to recreate Lala's death scene without an
I know. Yeah, it's funny for such a pivotal character as she is. I don't have anything that represents her in my collection. Um, and I that's why I want that Elmeth. Um, But another cool thing is they're also reissuing the Alex and the Zaku, part of the 0080 line, War in the Pocket, which they're amazing figures.
Yeah.
In fact, there's two different versions of the Alex. I don't know which one they're releasing. There's one with the Choban armor and one without. But the one without comes with the damage of that end fight with the Zaku. So I'm sure it's going to be that one.
Well, and there's actually 2 versions of the Zaku Kai as well. One of them, actually comes with ground beef.
Oh wow. Okay. That was good. But for a second you had me because like, wait, a second version? I didn't know about this? Dude, that was well played. Well played.
R.I.P. Bernie.
And normally I don't like joking about burning in hamburgers, but that was just done well because it's pretty sad. But no. Um another thing is they're releasing. I'm just putting this together. They're releasing the GM, which is an excellent robot spirits. Like knowing because they're kind of not expensive, but they're higher priced since they're not widely available. This might make them more. And I will, even though I have 3 Gunpla, I haven't built yet of these. I don't care. I want an army.
But the design of that is so much cooler looking than the Gunpla.
It
I think
is.
that the Gunpla kind of looks goofy.
It's almost like because what's interesting is the GM is the Ver anime, but it seems like with the Gunpla, it's almost like they're not doing the Ver anime and they're making it a little more boxy,
Yeah.
Whereas the Ver anime kind of is almost like an unintentional throwback of modern design, where there's some slim sleekness going on in some areas. But the Zagok that's also going to be released, both of them together too have a thing where you can have the Zagok claw go through the GM, and there's a plug on the back of the GM of the claw coming out. So
That's awesome.
so that's why they're releasing these together. They actually go together. And I just want to end it where, like, super pumped that this Robot Spirits line is so popular and they're still coming out with figures for it. The greatest thing ever would be if they came out with Robot Spirits figures from the Missing Link game.
Yeah.
Or some of the side story stuff, like having a Blue Destiny, a Pale Rider, just where it's already detailed up. And I would think they would have it where it has the Hades and non-Hades modes or things you can unplug or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the downsides of the Gunpla of those kits is that, once you kind of build it, it's kind of a pain in the butt to like remove the visor and swap out the vents and things like that to activate the Hades or the exam mode. I feel like that lends itself more to a Robot Spirits line where it's just
Yeah.
effect parts that you can pop on and off.
Yeah, because I got the Toad's Ritter recently. I don't want to buy two. It was $70, and I was already like being like, okay, this is going to be a big purchase, and I guess also, yeah, that it is interesting how there's all those different variants, and they haven't really. Yeah, because not only would I jump into my Discord and be like, hey guys, should I do Hades or non-Hades or exam or non-exam? And then I think another member, Neon Wave, had been posting recently, like, should I be doing the exam or non-exam? Because I think it's interesting. Like, on one hand, maybe Bandai is wanting people to buy two of them, but I think then people are just not going to most of the time. Whereas maybe, let's say the kit was a little more expensive and it just had more options.
Yeah, or I mean, at the very least, just have the different options available for purchase so that you can buy the exam version or you can buy the regular version.
Yeah.
Like with the unicorn, they had, the fully awakened version of the unicorn with the green effect parts versus the regular destroy mode with the red parts. Now they have like the perfectibility with the blue. It's like,
Yeah.
they're doing the exact same thing where they're reprinting the same kit with different colored runners. Well, why not just reprint two different versions of the Totus Ritter, one with red and one with green? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it is like how popular the kit is, because being P Bandai with most of the ones I've been, although you can get a Blue Destiny pretty cheap though. That's the thing. You can still get a BD1 pretty cheap, but it's the other ones, maybe even the 3. I forget. So it may be a matter of, if it's a wide release, if you can get it cheap, that might be the way to go. But with the P Bandai, it's like, what do you do? Yeah. Oh, let me ask you something. Have you heard of, and I just found out about this recently. Actually, it was from my Discord, enthusiast, actually, that posts in there. He has a 100 scale Zeta that's metal. That parts of it are metal. And I looked online. It's not expensive. And it's already built. I mean, there's some parts on runners still, but from what it looks like, it's mostly built. It even has, like, for instance, the blue on the shoulders. It has the different shades of, like, the baby blue and the dark blue.
That's cool.
Which, yeah. So I'll send you a link later, because to me it looked like the best representation of a Zeta I've seen.
Wow.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what line that would have been a part of.
Oh, like third party. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a third party.
It's a third party. Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I guess that Verka Zeta is supposed to be dropping here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got my pre-order in for it, but I have no idea. Like,
yeah. Sometimes there's like a lot of people are already getting that rebuild aerial.
Yeah.
And I don't have it yet. I've had it pre-ordered since it came out. So yeah.
Oh man, there's just like smugglers out here.
Oh no, I'm being triggered. You can barely see it. There's an ad over on the far right. It's not an ad, but it's Gigi changing in the bathroom. They don't need to show me that right now. I'm live. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that was pretty neat, although this had already been talked about, but the Gundam Aerial boasts highest initial sales for a TV series lead Gundam high grade model kit. So, one that's cool, just to get more awareness for Gundam.
Yeah.
If anything, Witch from Mercury is a perfect introduction to the wider Gundam. And in fact, I'm now just formulating this in my mind. Like, UC is more mature. Generally, like Hathaway, you wouldn't go to the theater with the kids to watch that. But
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's all these other Gundam shows that people can get into, and then as they get older, really get into UC, and then there's so much of that. So, I mean, it's really good news to see this. Even if, really, in my mind, I don't care. I would rather this be about Kukuru's Doan's Island or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But this at least means that Gundam is here to stay. If they're seeing this and they're excited about it, they're going to, it's less about, which from Mercury is most popular. It's more about, okay, we need to use the same type of marketing for the other things we do. Cross promotion with games, all that, the music videos.
And they've been getting really good at doing that, like the cross promotions, the marketing aspect of it. So credit where it's due, Bandai. Definitely keep up the good work. Maybe give some of that love, I guess they are doing a good job with UC too. It's not like, obviously a lot of this stuff is geared towards Witch from Mercury, which makes sense since it's the newest series. If there was a UC series on air right now, we would see the same type of marketing push.
I cannot wait for that to ever happen again. If there's going to be, either they're going to just be movies for now, but another UC series would be amazing.
As long as it's not like Doozy Bots or something.
Doozy Bots? Never heard of that.
That's a conversation for next week. We're gonna put you on to Doozy Bots and.
Okay, all right. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Androids, Adam, are you a UC elitist? Well, I would say. Someone's asking about the hair.
Oh
yeah, feels better. But it's not. This is like way too tall. It almost looks like a flat top.
Yeah, we don't want that. That's
Kid and Play. Wasn't it Kid and Play or something?
Yeah, you can tell how old we are. We both are. That's like how Kid and
Play. Yeah. No, but Androids, to get back to what you're saying about being a UC elitist, it seems like I would be, but I think at the end of the day, the UC just tends to have things that align with what I consider top tier mech warfare. It's like Witch from Mercury is fun. The school stuff I don't really care about, but it's been fun to watch. Gundam Wing, to me, that's an incoherent mess. It just has funny, schlocky stuff going on. I think the closest was Seed Destiny, like from watching something that really had good writing, dialogue, characters. Even if they did stupid stuff, it's in line with what a human would do. So, but it sounds like it sometimes that I'm a UC elitist. But.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would classify myself as a UC elitist, but I just, like I've got better things to do than argue with people on the internet. Like,
I don't hang on it. Yeah,
like 00, fine. That's.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's what I prefer all the time, but I try not to get too hung up on it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna get to the main thing, but real quick, there was some new P Bandai. Amazing nice. Exia. First time I ever heard of that. Let's see. They have I guess that's that new Gundam. HWS hardware.
High weapon system.
High weapon system. There we go. Yeah, it's a Verkop. Yeah. So maybe they just slapped on accessories, but. And then the Gunbuster V2, which is a really cool one. I have the V2, but not the Gunbuster. And then the Spartan's back up again. So guys, anyone that ever wanted the Spartan, this is the third time that it's available. So they are making these kits available. And those other two Zaku's from Kukuru's Doan's.
I definitely got to put in a pre-order for one of those guys.
Yeah. And then the fin funnel for the real grade high new Gundam looks pretty neat. And apparently it can now be used on the new Gundam also. Actually, yeah, there's a picture here.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, that's pretty cool because I didn't bother getting the high grade, the real grade high new, even though it actually does look pretty fun to build. I do have the new, so I might.
Which is highly rated as like one of the top real grades. Is
Yeah.
that new Gundam? Yeah.
Other than the fins staying on the back, it is awesome. But yeah, the fins fall off all the time. It's okay. So there was that, and then the last thing here is this metal build crossbone. I love the metal build stuff, but what they're doing here with this crossbone is they're just re-releasing. They've been released. They have like 4 variants of the crossbone in the metal build line. So interesting. It seems like they're just releasing suits that they could do multiples of. Like there's an F91, but there's also the F90.
Yeah.
And then other than that, there's a bunch of Exias, the metal build, and then a bunch of strikes. I wish they would expand the line, but I wonder if it's just expensive to produce, and that's why they just don't have all these variants. Because I would love if they did a metal build of like a GM, and
Yeah.
I mean they do have the fixed figuration, but those are like specific to Kukuru's No One's Island. But having a metal build of like even the gun cannon, just some of the classic stuff, Azaku,
Yeah, they seem to reserve it for like some of the more esoteric mobile suits.
which is interesting because it's like, is there just a demand for like the F90, 91 and crossbone stuff? Because then even they get a lot of kits and robot spirits anyway. People don't talk about that stuff as much, even though there's a lot.
As well, they shouldn't. It's all fan fiction.
Yeah, right. Okay, so, oh yeah, and then one more thing before we get into the main topic, is the Armored Core 6. So what's really cool about this is they're selling a collector's edition and a premium edition. The collector's edition comes with, it says figurine. I don't like the sound of that because it sounds like it's something small with no articulation. But $229. I'm surprised. Maybe they didn't want to put model kit, or maybe it's not a model kit. But I figure like an action figure would sound better than figurine. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
But for $449, they have one that comes with a hanger, or they say garage. I mean, that's insane.
Maybe that's just no. I mean, I can't imagine that that's like a translation.
Yeah, just. As much as I would like this, I just don't see $229 minus 60. Still, does that? And we were just looking at like a metal build, for instance, that was 200 and something. Like, I do not see it being that same quality. So,
no way. Not for a freebie type giveaway, or not a freebie, but
those
like
pack-in collector's items, yeah, they tend to be cheap. I have one from Lost Planet. It's a cool mech, but it falls apart. And
yeah. Remember when people were complaining about like the Fallout?
Oh yeah, that was all cheap by the all those things are cheap when they come out. Like Dead Space, I got the collector's edition to get the gun, and when you got it, it was a tiny one that was a keychain light or something. I'm like, what? Or when we got the Master Chief helmet.
That you can't actually wear.
It's pretty interesting. Where they cut corners there on that stuff. Anyway, I'm really interested in playing this game because with the state of notoriety that FromSoft has right now, like maybe they have the means to really do those quality of life improvements because these games have always been fun, but they've always been hardcore fun.
Yeah.
Elden Ring did a great job of being classic Souls but being accessible. So I'm kind of hoping to get some of that with the Armored Core 6.
Yep.
All right. So a cool thing that was posted was, Mojo. Watch Mojo. I'm not too familiar with them, but I've seen the logo around. They have 25 million subscribers. God,
my goodness. There has to be a few bots in there.
It's got to be. So they did their top 10 series, or Gundam series. So here we go. I found although let me actually fix the thing real quick. I have it kind of
there.
Oh wait, nope. Yeah, give me just a second. I'm going to move this over so everyone can see the... Okay, that's good enough.
Nice.
So
that looks good.
Witch for Mercury. I'm guessing this is going from 10 down. Witch for Mercury. Fighter G. Turn A. C. What is this person? Were they drunk when they were typing this out? C. They meant seed. Wing, Iron Blooded Orphans, Unicorn, Mobile Suit Gundam, 00, and Zeta. So, first reactions. That's actually a pretty good list.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's some good UC representation on there.
Mm-hmm.
Can't complain with that.
I like, for instance, with my list, I mean, I haven't seen Iron Blooded Orphans yet, unfortunately. So I wouldn't, but Wing and Seed would not be on there at all. Haven't finished Turn A. Could be a contender.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
put. Different. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's just a very good, nice story to watch. Like, even if the tropey stuff isn't there. G Gundam. I know that makes some people sad, but Zeta being number one, that's dope.
That's what do they say? Like, even a blind squirrel can find a nut. That's
yeah.
Look at that. They got one right. That's
But it's cool that they even have the original as third. Because I mean, it's really good, but I think sometimes I was even thinking about this yesterday, like, as much as I like the original, sometimes it's enjoyable to watch newer animation. Like, for me, Thunderbolt, both of those would be in the top 10 just because it is high quality animation showing top tier mobile suit battles. Like, just that Saikamu Zaku grabbing the head of the GM that was on the G fighter and the lasers going through, like, that's all, like, it's like fan servicey stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of stuff that you're always like, oh man, if I were piloting a mobile suit, this is how I would like take someone out, yeah, I mean, that's kind of all of what Thunderbolt is, if you think about it. It's like
exactly, and I like it a lot for that. It's interesting not to see Origin on here. Now, I didn't watch this video. I mean, who actually does? No, but so they could have mentioned it. That could be the honorable mentions.
Well, so they gave an honorable mention, I believe, to 0080, but not even to 0083. So Stardust Memory didn't make the list, didn't make an honorable mention either. Like,
and you know what? And that's an interesting thing about Stardust Memory, because even I think sometimes the story, as the characters are going through it, it's like, okay, but it's, again, high quality animation. Like, the coolest designs of mobile suits battling a nuke. I mean, like a Gundam with a nuke and then shooting that fleet, like, that is the stuff you want,
Oh yeah, and like the Dendrobium Orcus with the, like, pinning the mobile suit.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that's
yeah. I mean, yeah, that type of stuff is. Let's see. I'm gonna see if anyone had any. Tal's is saying, "Oh, what's up?"
Oh, I'm just laughing at Shirt Lad. Didn't watch this. Nobody actually does. Adam woke up and chose violence. Yeah, right. It's well, and I think you and I was joking with Zeonic Shadow. I was like, I don't even think that they watched any of these series. I think that they just went to Gundam Reddit and were like, hey guys, if you were to put together a top 10, what would it be? And
well, funny you say that, because on Reddit they just stopped doing. It was either a weekly rating of each series. So I wonder if they went through, saw all that, and then ranked it that way. I'm going to double check.
Yeah, I mean, like you and I were just saying, is it's like I don't necessarily agree with all of the hate that's slung at Witch from Mercury, but how are you going to put it on a list of the top 10 series if it's not even done yet?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like,
it could take a turn for the worse and be crap for the last few episodes.
Yeah, because I'm enjoying it. I just it's like not at a point where I would even put it in a top 10 or anything.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely seems like somebody at Bandai slipped them a 50 and said, hey, if you could just plug our current running show, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, and for the SEO, Talos was saying, wait till you see their original lists on Gundam, both of you. You will die laughing. So I'm going to have to look that up later, because I wonder if, the list is crazy. Because this is a very inoffensive list. But I guess, what would you have as your number one? Because Zeta would be my number one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that you and I would both probably put Zeta as our number one, but then like our top 5 would vary wildly, right?
It could. My top 5 would have the original, It would have
Yep.
probably unicorn.
See, that's where I'm like,
Hmm.
you know, the animation in Unicorn obviously beautiful,
Yeah.
but yeah, the story didn't do it for me. So
Interesting. We'll have to have a debate over that sometime. Although I
yeah,
will agree, like I've been watching Unicorn lately, and I want to do a supercut of how annoying Benager is, where he just like comes into the room and he's like, "Guys, for the sake of the world, I don't care what you think; it's what I think," and like he's so
even so,
authoritative
but
and
even
whiny about it.
so,
Yeah, yeah, it's
yeah,
um, but it's because it calls back to so many things. Again, it's like a fan servicey Gundam for me. Um,
yeah,
and then I would probably have 0080
yeah,
in the
yeah.
top
And Jorah
five.
says it too. War in the Pocket. That's got to
Mm.
be in the top five.
Yeah, just because like, oh man, and that reminded me when I told you I was playing SD Generation Genesis, and I got to that part, and it's like, oh crap, and like the music plays that dun dun dun, and then it's like, oh, and it's
Yeah, it's
it when it
brutal.
affects you that much, it's awesome. Like,
Well, and I think that what War in the Pocket does really, really well is that Al represents your typical Gundam fan, right? Like,
yeah,
oh man, cool mobile suits. Like I got a Xeon rank badge. Like this is so awesome. War is so cool. Like it's so nice watching War on TV. And then it's like, oh, then it's not just wow, cool robot, right?
yeah, that's I think the best example of a show kind of showing what it is to be a fan, and then the reality.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. Um, and that reminds me, I think I did a video one time or on a podcast of the manga that was a sequel. It was like a follow up to that, and I forgot what happened in it, but um, yeah,
That's interesting. Where do you go from there? That's
yeah. Because my whole thought is like, what does that do to Al in the future in the Universal Century timeline? Does he decide to take up arms, or does he, or does he's like, yeah, I'm just out, no fighting, and then he just lives just. Hey, he was a gamer. He was playing video games, so maybe
yeah.
he's a game
Well,
developer.
it's interesting to me that like when you see Camille Badan in late UC, I think he's like in one of the later like Moon Gundam series. It's like, oh, he becomes a doctor. I see that future more for Al than for Camille.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
um,
that's true. Because I mean, I guess Al is so impressionable at that time, and what was affecting him the most was when he saw the destruction.
yeah,
And then everyone was trying to talk to him, and then like, yeah,
yeah,
it's very interesting too. Because remember at the end, like he was crying, and then like no one knew why, but he didn't know how to say it.
right,
And
yeah,
that reminded me when I was in third grade, I had to move to California for 9 months because my dad got this. He had to go there to do something for 9 months. So we were just gonna just go with him and just live in California for 9 months. Anyway, I just remember one day at the playground, I started crying, and people were like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, and I didn't really, but it was because I was going to be leaving my friends. It's just at a young age,
yeah,
sometimes you don't know how to articulate, or you don't know, do you articulate this? Is someone going to be like, "Why are you crying about that?" And I wonder if Al
yeah.
is going through the same thing.
Yeah, sometimes man, it's so fascinating that like you can identify a similar childhood trauma to something that and that just man, that says something about the quality of storytelling that's on display there is yeah, sometimes you just can't articulate something
And yeah,
and
and you
for
don't
them to be
know.
able to capture that moment.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you don't know how to, or if as a kid to communicate that.
Yeah.
And I'll see that with my youngest. Like there'll be time he's crying, and it's like, well, what are you crying about? And sometimes he doesn't want to talk about it, and you have to kind of balance that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's something they don't want to talk about because they don't know, they're trying to process it. But then sometimes you got to do a little digging or just keep an eye out to see what's going on. But yeah, I always connected with that. So
Yeah. See, parenting advice. The chat, you
yeah.
should be you should be paying attention here.
Well, back to this list real quick. The one thing, if anything, I would, but still, I think it's crazy to see Seed there. Like,
Yeah.
I still to this day, and I'm gonna keep trying to figure it out. Destiny is like 20 times better than, than Seed, and
Yeah,
I just don't
I'll
get
die
it.
on that hill.
Yeah, that's the hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, yeah, that just about does it. I think that's it. Anything else going on?
No, that's all I can think of. Gundam
Cool.
related. Kind of a slow week,
Yeah.
as far as Gundam news goes, but
Yeah, I guess just waiting for the inevitable. Here's the next UC thing, or here's the next whatever we're gonna do for
live
Breaker.
action.
Like,
Or
oh yeah, the live action, of
yeah,
course. But
that's
even Breaker, I feel like there needs to be either a game they're gonna announce. I know they have the shows coming out later, so it makes me feel like there's gonna be a game announcement sometime. But
yeah. I mean, if they're gonna sunset the mobile game, they have to fill that gap somehow.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, well, anyway, all thanks for watching, and we will talk later.